Hello and welcome to Grow Conversations, your window into the world of medical cannabis here in the United Kingdom. My name is Alex Fraser. I'm Patient Access Lead at Grow Pharma. I'm your host today as well. And on today's very special episode, we have Hellen Frost. Welcome to the show, Hellen.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you.
So what makes today a little bit special, just for those who are watching? Typically, Grow Conversations is your window into the world of medical cannabis, but really the medical cannabis industry and those who are working within it. And that is not you, Hellen. Hellen is, why don't you tell us in your own words a little bit about yourself? Just the basics. Who is Hellen Frost? Tell us about yourself, if you would be so kind.
Okay. So I'm only recently into the world of medical cannabis. I started, I had my first prescription just before Christmas. So, I am also a power lifter. So it's been a journey looking at the interaction of these two things. So in my spare time, I found I love the sport of powerlifting. In my day job, I'm a lecturer in forensic investigation at university, and yeah, that's my main interest.
Tell us, if you will, a little bit about why you have a cannabis prescription, I guess, first and foremost, and we can understand it. And then we're going to dig into the what's the sport called? So you've just said it. What's the actual sport? Powerlifting. Okay, so I'm not hugely au fait with the world of athletics and that.
I can explain.
I will try and get all the technical terms correct for us. So powerlifting. We're going to talk about that because that's ultimately why we've got you here on the show. We don't typically do interviews directly with patients, primarily because there's too many fascinating stories. It'd be impossible for me to cover them all. But when I heard you talk on, it was a patient Zoom call, so the MCPA, might as well give them credit. They're doing great work, about what you've been going through in your experience. I just thought, wow, this is such a crucial. We've got a guest. No, you're right. Yeah, no, really, really interested to talk to you about your prescription and your competing and essentially what's happened there and what you've been told. But yeah, let's take a step back first. Let's talk about your prescription and if you're happy to do so, let's talk a bit about your diagnosis and if you're happy to, what cannabis does for you. So what is it? What's your diagnosis that you're prescribed for?
So I guess the main symptom it really helps me with is anxiety. I've got mental health conditions and I'm on the autistic spectrum. So anxiety comes as a big part of both of those. I can never really separate it into what's causing what, but both of those are there. My mental health problem gives me a lot of noise in my head. It's very loud in there, and one of the first thing I found when trying the medical cannabis was how much it settled, it quieted it down. I remember posting on the MCPA Discord that my head has never been this quiet. It's just like it's still there, but it's background and it just feels dimmed. I always feel like my head's being like in a bit of a room full of people that, there's a lot of background stuff and it just mutes it down a bit. So there's that. And I guess along with a lot of mental health conditions, sleep has always been an issue. So that was the main reason I actually tried it first, was for trying to help me with sleep, getting some long, good quality sleep, which is obviously important as an athlete as well. So
yeah, let's talk about that a bit, shall we? Let's talk about your athleticism. So as well as being a lecturer, which is a whole world we'll potentially cover later, but let's move on for now. How did you get into powerlifting? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's I've not had a background in sport. I've been an outdoor person, but I've never competed in any sports or any team sports or anything like that, except back at school a long time ago. But it was a positive actually from the COVID-19 lockdowns.
Mm.
Um, it was that I remember the very first lockdown when we were supposed to only like go out for an hour a day. So I thought I'm going to make the most of that hour and go and walk my dog for a good hour and try and get my steps in and all that kind of stuff. And in a process of just trying to get a little bit healthier. I've been working on my mental health with therapy for quite a long time, and I'd finally got to the point where I felt able to start working on my physical health. It was just all too much to do everything together. So I thought, okay, so let's try. So I started walking. I have a very good friend who'd started going to the gym. She's very persistent, and after many weeks of saying, come to the gym with me, I eventually went. It was just my university gym, and I wasn't sold because it was a lot of machines and I didn't really know what I was doing and that kind of stuff. So I went a few times, but I wasn't that keen. I also had really high anxiety going out into public places, so that was another issue. And then on Facebook, I saw a friend advertise a small gym local to me, and they did like very small group sessions of like up to 6 people, where you had a little space with all of your own kit, and the trainer was there, and that it was. So I started going to that. At that point, I was somebody, I couldn't talk to anybody, I wouldn't look at anybody, I didn't smile or anything like that. And then gradually, as I kept going, I was like, I really like this. And they had us using, I'd never picked a barbell a lot, for weightlifting up in my life. They started getting us use that. Little tiny dumbbells I was struggling to move, little 3-kilo dumbbells I was pressing. And then it went up really quickly. And within a few months, I was deadlifting 100 kilos and off the floor. So it was just like, I know it was making me feel good. It was giving me confidence. I was getting fitter and stronger, and it just kept going like that. And so I realized that it was the lifting side of the gym that was my thing rather than all of the other stuff. So I then looked into it because on my autistic spectrum, I like to research. So I was researching into it and found that there was a whole sport called powerlifting behind it, which consists of 3 lifts. There's a squat, bench press, and a deadlift. So started to train a bit more into that. Then I thought I looked and saw that into British powerlifting and saw that there was a southeast region and that they had a regional competition in my county, not only like 30 minutes away from me. So I thought, I've never competed in anything in my life. I'll do it once, and if I hate it, I never have to do it again. But at least I can say that I've done it. And I went there and had a fabulous time. I absolutely loved it. Qualified to compete in the national competition in that very first one, and found myself in my second competition competing at a national level. And so that was 2 years ago. And I've just been steadily going at it since then. Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry to even interrupt the flow there, but like, just that alone is incredible. This is.
I had no idea of what level I was or anything, because I was just in the gym and everyone else does gym stuff. No one else is particularly involved in that particular interest, and I was just getting on with it. And then you go and then you compete against the people and think, oh, actually, I could do this. It was incredible.
Wonderful. So I know there'll be people watching who will kick me if I don't ask the question. What can you lift now? I don't even know if that's the right terminology. I hope I'm asking the right question.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I've just gone in powerlifting. You're in weight categories, obviously, male and female, different categories. There are different weight categories, and there's also different age categories. So after you're 40 years old, you start going in the masters category, and it goes like Masters 1 from 40 to 49, Masters 2 from 50. And it's from I'm 50 this year, so I've just gone into the Masters 2 category. So that's just like, because obviously, I mean, I've started late, so my weights are still increasing, but normally as people get older, their weights decrease. But I'm still on my nice newbie curve, so it's really good. So in my last competition just before Christmas, when I did there's like a full competition where you do all 3 lifts, and then there are separate competitions where you just do bench press only. No idea why, but that's how it works. So in my last full competition, my squat where you have the barbell on your back and then you squat down to the ground, stand back up again, was 140 kilos.
Wow.
And then my bench press, where you're lying flat on the bench, you unrack the bar, you lower it down to your chest and then push it back up, is the maximum competition I got was 87.5 kilos. And then the third lift is the deadlift, where the barbell is on the floor and you literally pick it up and stand up straight. And
that one.
No, not above your head. You just stand up until you are stood up straight with your arms down, and it's just off the floor. So you're standing up straight, lifting it off the flour. That's 160 kilos.
Wow, 160 kilos.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom that. I mean, I obviously don't know who you're competing against, what their scores are, what's typical of that sport, but it sounds like a lot of money.
I needed. So all of those, in a full power competition, all 3 are added together to give a total weight for all 3 lifts. And to qualify nationally, for my category is 332.5 kilos. Don't know why, but it is. That last competition, I had 387.5 kilos as my total, so well over the qualifying total.
So what happened next in this? You went to national.
Yeah, so I competed at the national competition for a couple of years in a row. Compared to some of the other people, especially when I was still in the Masters 1 category, I was nowhere near the top, but it was an amazing experience, and I improved both years. Then, as I say, I've come into the new category this year, so I was competing against different people, and I competed at the British bench press in March, and came second.
Wow.
So got on the podium, and top 2 places in each category are eligible for selection onto the British squad for international competitions. So you submit all your information if you're interested. I thought, well, I might as well submit all the stuff. I'm not going to be selected in my mind, but if they've not got enough people, here I am. That was I have very much imposter syndrome with most things. So, and then I looked on the website where the nominations of what each country has put their lifters, and my name's on there, Hellen Frost, Great Britain. So that meant that.
When was that? When did you find out? When was that? Roughly speaking.
Last week in March, I think. I think it was.
This is weeks ago. We're filming. It's the 1st of May.
Yeah, last week in March.
Really recently, you found out you're going.
Because it's and the World Bench Press Championships are on the last week of May in Texas in the States, and so suddenly I was like, as long as everything goes okay and I do what I need to do in training, I've got the opportunity to go and compete on a world stage, and it was just like I wasn't expecting that at all. It completely threw me, but yeah. So it was like, how do I do this? So,
I mean,
um,
it's incredible. Firstly, congratulations. I think are in order. It's a remarkable achievement to go from
such a
you.
privilege. Yeah,
Wow, it's wonderful to watch you tell the story. And whilst I'm watching you tell the story, I'm just watching your face light up, and you clearly have such a passion for this. It's a wonderful thing when someone finds something that just brings them joy, and more
yeah,
wonderful still. Not that it matters, whether the thing that brings you joy is something you compete internationally or whatever, but the fact that you've been able to get so stuck into that and do so well in it, it's incredibly impressive, frankly. And
yeah. I mean, standing on a powerlifting stage for me is very hard with obviously anxiety. They're normally streamed live, these competitions,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you're wearing these awful singlet type things which are not flattering, but even if you are thinner than me. So um the whole like just getting myself there and doing it was such a huge thing for me. You're wearing a short sleeve t-shirt. My arms are covered in self-harm scars, so that I had to stand there for the world to see. I'm a lot better at showing my scars now. That they're my past, than they're not my future. But I'm no longer ashamed of them. They're just part of me and my story. So,
mm,
um, and then I met a couple of people who obviously um, saw the scars and
yeah,
then talked about their experiences. So it wasn't just me finding that lifting was helping me and my health and my mental health, because going to the gym in the morning to me is like an extra antidepressant. It's I've managed to like start going back to work and doing all those things since starting lifting. So it's
brilliant.
been literally life changing. So yeah, that the whole thing about standing on a stage in front of people doing your sport is terrifying. But so it's yeah,
I can see the
I
joy
love
it
it.
brings you. I can see it
Yeah,
in your face. I don't even think you need to put it into words. I think just how you're talking about it says everything. So how does cannabis fit into that in terms of does it help you? Do you find it hinders at all your performance? Is there the actual day-to-day use of it? How is that something that is it helping you with the
yeah.
anxiety? Perhaps getting up there on stage. Is it making that more difficult?
I wasn't sure to start with, and I was a bit wary about taking my medication before going to the gym because I wasn't
Sure.
sure. But actually, I found that because it reduces that anxiety, I'm able to focus more
Mm.
and actually get more out of my sessions than I would do with. I find with anxiety, you just waste so much energy on it,
Mm.
like it just takes up so much of your daily energy. So just by reducing that, you've got more to give to other things. So actually, so now it's part of my pre-gym routine when I'm training. Um, uh, THC is not allowed in um, competition for British powerlifting. It's part of a drug. It's a drug tested sport, so it's not allowed in
Okay.
competition. It's fine out of competition, but you're not allowed it in competition, which is like from midnight the night before the day you compete. So um, I won't be able to use it whilst competing, but it certainly has helped me in my training to just relax me. There's no, I wouldn't say performance enhancing. I think they found that in studies that there is no sports performance enhancing things from THC. It's more about treating my symptoms and getting me more on a level playing field with everybody else, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think there'll be a lot of cannabis consumers watching this. Be sad to hear that, but I think, I think you're not wrong. Certainly not, anything like the typical performance enhancing drugs. Um, So you're not going to be allowed to consume it before the event, but we know
Mm.
that THC stays in the body for a long time. So
Yeah.
how does the testing work?
So it's random testing. Anybody could be tested. So out of competition, you have to give all your availability, and they could just turn up at any time. But of course, wouldn't be a problem because you're allowed to have it out of competition. There's a level that a threshold level that for when they for a urine test that you're allowed to have, but because I use medical cannabis daily, it's going to stay in my bloodstream even if I don't take
You'd
it.
be way over the level.
I could not take it for a few weeks before, and it will probably still be over the level because of how it stays in your body fat tissues and is released over a long period of time. So
Yeah.
Even if I didn't use it, which obviously I can't on a day of competition, I will test over the threshold.
And what
Hasn't
happens
happened
then?
yet because I haven't been tested. So if I didn't have a reason for it to be in my bloodstream, couldn't prove a reason, then I would be banned from the sport.
Wow.
I would not be able to compete in any British powerlifting competitions at all for a certain period of time, or for however long they decided. So they do have a system called a therapeutic use exemption for people that are on prescribed medications, where you have to show, where you submit all your paperwork. I think you have to pay a fee, and you'll have to show that there's no other alternative for what you have been prescribed, and that it's essential for you to have it. I haven't had to go through that yet. As a masters lifter, would only have to do that if I got tested in competition.
Okay.
So if I went to Worlds and they tested me, it's less likely for older lifters, and unless you've suddenly come in and you're suddenly lifting massive weights. They only have a certain, I guess, fund for testing, and they tend to focus on like the open class that are getting world records. But the possibility's there because there is random testing. So then I would have to retrospectively apply for one of these therapeutic use exemptions, hope it gets approved, and then it would be fine. If not, I would be banned. There have been cases where people have been using cannabis, but it's not been, in the cases I've seen, it's not been medically prescribed. They were self-medicating with it, and they were banned from their sports.
I mean, that having a prescription obviously makes a massive difference. Just generally speaking, we obviously know you can, it enables you to drive, providing you're not impaired, and you can travel with your medication. You're fully legal in the UK. So
it's just a worry in the background about being tested and then having to go through that whole procedure. And I assume, meanwhile, whilst I'm going through that, I wouldn't be able to compete. Technically, they could take off any medals or things that you've won. You could have those taken away. So
it's high risk you going into this competition, essentially, in terms of your ability to continue to perform in the sport at a competitive level, at least, is very much dependent on whether they test you, and then the results of what happens retroactively, and this application you'd have to make. I mean, it's obviously we started this podcast, and the first thing you said, well, one of the first things we touched on was that you struggle with anxiety. I can't imagine for someone who has found a lifeline in the sport. I'm sorry to put such a fine point on it for you, but I think it's just important to clarify how what is going on there. And not only that, but I'm also aware, because we've had a few preliminary discussions about this, haven't we? That it's the competition itself, the international competition you're going in a number of weeks. is not being hosted in the UK. Where is it being hosted, Helen? In all the places that might be
being hosted in Austin, Texas, in the United States.
And for those who
So
don't know,
I will not be traveling with
yes,
my medical cannabis to the United States because obviously federally it's not allowed. And Texas is also a state where there is very little availability of any medical cannabis use. So I will not be able to take that medication from all the time I'm there, which is going to make it even more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, possibly the state in the US that is the least cannabis friendly. Austin, I know Austin, Texas, I think is a very it's a fantastic city from
I'm excited. I haven't really travelled in the United States. I've only ever passed through airports, so it's not going to be a holiday. But I am excited to go and visit. But yes,
levels of anxiety I can see, and not having the medication you use for the anxiety, and
exactly,
knowing what, potentially could be the outcome of this. If you're tested for the competition, obviously you'll have to keep us in the loop. We'll have to do some sort of update or follow up video at some point when we know what's happened, where you've placed, whether they've tested you, and we'll follow that story. I think if that's okay with you. I just thought, wow, it's so many different parts of this whole medical cannabis story tied up into one. That how it works in sports, and we know various sports in the US are now allowing cannabis. For example, basketball. I know you can consume cannabis and be a professional NBA player in the USA. I know that the doping rules that WADA had, I presume that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
It's WADA,
It is WADA.
I forget what it stands for. Well, World Anti-Doping
something administration
authority,
something
administration.
Authority. So, but yeah, it's what WADA for those who are interested in looking up. And this is their drug policy.
And they cover the Olympics and all of and a lot of sports. Yeah. There are non-tested powerlifting federations.
Okay.
But obviously they're non-tested for all drugs, so there will be steroid use and that kind of thing, which is not what I am interested in, and not interested in competing against people not on that same level playing field. No. So
it adds legitimacy, doesn't it, that it's WADA officiated, athleticism. I'm aware of that, and for good reason. I think it is something that we need to have a sight on in terms of regulating how people.
There are lots of drugs which I totally agree should be banned in a sporting competition. THC being banned still it's difficult, in 2024 is still
and it's that
thing.
international.
And the reasons why they've banned why it's still banned it just feeds into all of the misconceptions and all of the stigma that we face generally anyway.
Do you know what the reasons they give are? We're talking about WADA.
Yeah, so they reviewed it in 2022, I believe. They were asked to review it by a number of countries, because obviously in a number of countries it's illegal. Mm-hmm. It's completely legal either recreationally or medically. So this affects a lot of people. So they reviewed it and supposedly had the backgrounds of it, a panel who went through all of the things behind it, and there are three criteria for banning a drug. That it has the potential to enhance sport performance, it represents a health risk to the athlete, and it violates the spirit of the sport. So they've said that the most scientific studies so far have shown that it doesn't have the potential to enhance sport performance. They believe that needs more research. I personally cannot see any way it enhances my performance. In fact, the things that they say, because it's relaxing you a little bit more, may even be detrimental to a lot of could be detrimental, not a bit. They do believe that it's a health risk. And I can look at what they say in a minute, and they believe it violates the spirit of the sport. So
That last
that
one's very vague, isn't it? That last one is they could almost use that in any way they like, I suppose. It's kind of the spirit of the sport, who's to dictate what that exactly means, and where those lines are in the sand. And I suppose it does come down to them. It's interesting. I was just Googling while you were chatting there, just because I was curious. And CBD actually is exempt, isn't it? So CBD, and when I say exempt, it means
exempt.
You can consume CBD and still compete.
All other cannabinoids,
natural and synthetic. Yes. Wouldn't it be nice to just have THC exempt, particularly when prescribed? I feel like, and yeah, you mentioned earlier countries that have legally prescribed cannabis: Canada, Germany, Poland, the UK, Italy, Australia. I mean, it's not a short list, and it's countries that that are often very involved in sporting events. Not that there are countries that aren't, but you know what I mean. It's I guess relatively high profile countries in this. It's not like one or two sort of outliers, I suppose, on this international stage. I think if it was just one country, but and then of course you have many countries internationally where it's still not legally available.
Yeah.
So it's that conflict, isn't it?
It is. It's definitely a conflict. It's just different in so many different places, and they've so that's what they've decided, that it impacts the health of athletes because of the psychological health impacts, which is a general thing that people tend to say, but it's such a tiny proportion, and for I know it does that there's a lot of more research needs to be done in that, but it's not.
Certainly there's not a huge amount of evidence with prescription use that it's causing negative impact.
Yeah.
I think that probably is the crux of this, isn't it? Is that they are looking at research on illegal cannabis, and it sounds like rhetoric around illegal cannabis, and people screaming at the screen saying it's the same cannabis, it's the same cannabis. But I think that the regulations, the doctor oversight, the capacity to add extra levels of safety, you would hope that they might think differently about prescribed medication. I'm curious to know, are you aware of the rules around opiates or antidepressants at all? I'm sort of thinking about the typical drugs that might be compared
some of them
with prescription drugs.
I know something like tramadol has just been added to being prohibited in competition.
That's something we could look up in post and have a look at. I'm just wondering what the list of banned drugs. Oh, here we go. You've got the full list. Oh, it's a long list too. So it's just really interesting. I'm just curious now. We've gone off on one a little bit here, but it's all steroids, hormone-related stimulants.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it you can completely understand. That it's a performance issue.
Yeah, there's the obvious. I mean, like I say, steroids. There's the obvious ones. And then you've got I'm on the Wikipedia. It says narcotics and cannabinoids.
Narcotics in competition.
So there are other painkillers. Sorry, that are just for the record. Morphine would be banned, oxycodone would be banned, fentanyl, methadone. And buprenorphine. There's the strongest of the strong painkillers.
Strong,
It's interesting that CBD is not banned. So I guess it's how are we going to start classing THC? I think that's the question that we're having as societies on an international level. And it's hard to kind of quite get your head around the scope of what your personal situation sort of represents here, which is that the world and international bodies, and in this case WADA, the Doping Administration or Organization, are going to have to make policies on this stuff. If they continue to ban THC, it's going to continue to be more widely prescribed. It's going to continue to be, laws across the world are going to continue to be more liberalized. I truly believe that is a sort of unstoppable force that is happening internationally. People sort of come to terms with, what cannabis is when it's regulated and when it's prescribed. And one wonders where this ends. And I'm really interested to see what happens with you personally. If they test you, I hope they don't, frankly. Although a little part of my
hopefully we can just avoid all this.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
If I have to battle it, I will, on behalf of anybody else in a similar situation. I hope that what I do, is inspiring to other people with various invisible, hidden disabilities that
Fighting these
are
battles.
fighting these battles. I've just found the conclusions that WADA got when they did their last review. There's compelling medical evidence that use of THC is a risk for health, mainly neurological. The current body of objective does not support THC enhancement of physiological performance.
Okay.
Whilst the potential through neuropsychological effects cannot be excluded. Not sure what that means. And in considerations of the values encompassed by the spirit of the sport, noting in particular that respect for self and other participants includes the safety of fellow competitors, the use of THC in competition violates the spirit of the sport. That I find a bit offensive, actually.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of stigma in that, isn't there? We could really, you could sit and pull that apart, and I'll leave that to those.
I was actually quite shocked when I read that was actually a international body's opinion of the use of cannabis, medical, recreational.
It's kind of scary, isn't it? There's the sort of, it might be bad for your mental health. Okay, I can see that. There's studies on that, particularly with illegal cannabis, but there's an argument to be made, perhaps. But then, one would argue in your instance, you've been prescribed by a psychiatrist, you're monitored by a psychiatrist. This is a legal prescription.
It's the same. None of my other mental health medications are banned, and they do not do anything differently to what medical cannabis does for me. In fact, medical cannabis works better than a lot of my traditional antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. So it's fascinating that's the opinion.
It is fascinating, and I want to thank you very much, Hellen, for sharing this with us, so we have a better understanding of what you're going through as a patient. It's such a unique situation that you're in. We will absolutely keep in touch, and you'll have to let us know what happens, and we'll do a follow-up video when we know, even if it's just a 5-minute video that you won the championship and you didn't get tested and everything's hunky-dory. But either way,
I won't be winning any, but I'm hopefully going and experience the whole thing and just continue to work and improve. So I was thinking to myself, even if say, for example, there's 5 people in my group, even if I came 5th, that's still 5th in the world. That's what I've been telling myself. Oh, I was thinking I'm going to come last. Actually, what does that matter? I'm still one of a select number of people that's gone and competed, and the getting there in the first place is just tremendous. There's going to be a massive load of planning for me to just the whole trip in itself with the whole traveling bit. I've been in contact with Heathrow Airport and for their special assistance, and they're going to help me get all the way through and on the plane at all the other ends. So that's something, because I'm traveling on my own, but which is very scary for me. I haven't traveled internationally since I became very unwell in 2006. So
it's a long time. 18 years.
It's all big steps for me, well outside my comfort zone.
What would your 2006 self think of what you're doing at the moment? That you're competing, doing what you're doing athletically, and that you have a cannabis prescription as well to boot. What would they say?
That was when I was first initially started to get diagnosed, when I had a full crisis, and it's been up and down since then. I've been an inpatient, psychiatric inpatient, and all those kind of things. I've been out of work, unable to work for almost a decade. And many times I if you'd have asked me if I'd have been there the next year, I would have said no. So to be here now, in a position as it still feels weird calling myself an athlete with disabilities, is yeah. I wouldn't have believed you. I'd have laughed you out of the room.
It's so inspiring, Helen. It really is. It fills my heart to think that, we've barely touched on your mental health and the history there. And I didn't want to make this episode all about that, but you have opened up and you have, told us things about your life that you paint a picture that it's been really difficult at times. And I just want to thank you for being, open and honest and frank about that. It's really lovely of you. And I really hope that people watching this take away what I'm taking away, which is that you honestly don't know where your life is going. And I think that idea of depression feels very hard on the day it's in, the month, the week, it might be years. It's such an unbearable thing to go through. But to come out the other side and see what you're achieving now, and to see what the smile that it brings to your face, I think alone is who needs gold medals?
Like I'm just starting to live my life. I've just got to the point with the medications and the therapy and everything else that I've done, and sport and all those kind of things, that I'm just starting to actually be Hellen Frost. I'm obviously a bit late being 50 this year, but I reckon my 50s are gonna be banging.
I love that. I'm pretty damn certainly going to be banging by the sound of things. I'm very excited to see what happens. Look, I think the last thing we absolutely need to touch on is the fundraiser. So that it's really important to point out that you're currently in the midst, and you've raised about £1,700. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, it's about 1,800 now. Yeah,
nearly £1,800 to get you, and your goal is £2,100. So we're very close now to you getting your goal.
Yeah.
And what are you fundraising for exactly here? What's this going towards?
So unfortunately, in amateur sports, the situation of amateur is we have to completely self-fund us travelling, our accommodation whilst we're there, all of our kit and everything is self-funded. So I wasn't expecting to have this opportunity, and because of my past, my background, I don't have money just sitting around that I can do this. It's been a battle to get to where I am. So I've set up the fundraiser to help me get there, so that I can take this opportunity and stand there on a world stage as an athlete, but as an athlete with disabilities, as a medical cannabis user, that everything I did, I feel like I'm representing a lot of people when I do this. So I couldn't, without the generosity of the people that have supported me and donated so far, I couldn't do this. I literally would not be going if I can't reach this goal.
Absolutely. So it's covering the flights, it's covering the travel, it's covering the insurance. There's an anti-doping fee.
And a nice anti-doping fee. Yes. So pay to be tested. Yeah. And that's like, I don't know, it's about £50-60. Just that, Wow. All of the kit.
This is the thing.
Insurance, you can't just get normal insurance, travel insurance. You've got to have insurance that because competing in a sport, being competitive is not covered by like normal holiday insurance. So I was looking into it, and I was just like, this is the minimum. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, so look, if you are watching this and you have, as how could you not find Helen's story compelling and fascinating and emotional, frankly? Like, I'm certainly going to be donating as soon as we've hit stop on this recording, and I hope that many of you do too. And I hope we get Hellen out to Texas, and God, we'll be rooting for you. We'll be able to, we'll put all the links in with this episode here.
I think the MCPA are going to be streaming it, and oh my goodness, there's going to be so many people.
You have to let us know. So when it comes to the competition, what we'll do as soon as we can get the link to the stream, if we
Yeah.
legally can do this, I'll double check just to make sure we're not doing anything wrong. But we'll try and find the stream. We'll put it in the description of this video so that anyone who's watched this, save this video, favorite this video.
I think it's
We're going to put your
it's on
fundraiser in there.
YouTube, so
Yeah, we'll put the fundraising page right at the top of the blurb below. Please do donate. We're going to try and get this video out as soon as possible because we know you don't have a lot of time left to finish hitting that goal.
3 weeks. No, 4 weeks today. I'll be back home, I think.
Wow. And
on my way back home. So yeah.
So we'll check in. Maybe we'll give you some time to recover from your travels and all of the fun and games of being in Austin, Texas, and maybe in about a month or two we'll get back on and we'll do a little update on this as well. And we'll put that link in the video in the blurb below as well, of course, so everyone can keep up to date with what you're doing and find out if you won, where you came, where you positioned, how much you lifted. We'll cover all of that lovely stuff. But look, Hellen, thank you so much again. Thank you for being the first ever patient guest on Grow Conversations. Thank you for opening up about your experience and your story and everything that you're going through, what you've achieved so far. It's brilliant stuff.
We will keep battling the stigma, and hopefully eventually we'll get there.
These regulations changed. We get WADA to change their. That's the next step after you finish competing. Come back. We'll talk about that. We can maybe put something together there. But thank you again, and thank you for representing us patients on like I say, medical cannabis patients with mental health difficulties, patients with disabilities. I think you're the right person for the job, and it's brilliant to see. Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Let us know in the comments, and we'll be back soon with more guests. Take care.